How are you guys? BC90 here, welcome to my channel. Basically my channel will be looking at Dark Souls 3 videos, specifically focusing on PvP builds, soul level 125, and our main focus here is Poise builds, or builds that are taking advantage of the updated Poise mechanics that From recently introduced. Now, just to let you know guys, I am using the refined Poise calculator version 1.08, which was updated for regulation 1.22, posted on Reddit by Sir Halvard. So credits to you, it's an excellent Poise calculator, so thank you for that. I recommend anyone who is looking to create builds that focus on taking advantage of Poise and hyper armor to have a look at that calculator. So straight on to the build guys. Go over to the stats here. We're at soul level 125, and our attributes here, our vigor is at 40. Now personally I like having vigor at 39 or 40 for all of my builds. I don't go any lower than that because I like having a bit more HP to play around with to survive combos, and in this instance with this type of build I like having a bit more HP to be able to trade more effectively, because we are focusing on trading hits with our heavy weapon and not getting staggered, so having a bigger HP pool does help with that. Now our attunement here is at base 10. We're not really worried about attunement or FP, so that's at base level for the Knight class. Endurance is at 35, which I think is quite good because we are using an ultra weapon, so it's quite stamina consuming. Generally I like to get 2 or 3 swings in before before rolling or dodging, so having that extra bit of stamina does help. And now we move on to vitality. Our vitality here is at 50. Arguably is the most important stat here because we are looking to equip heavier armor to increase our minimum poise value here, which is at 48.48 on the screen. So having that vitality at 50 is essential for this type of build. Now our strength and dexterity is at 26 and 28 respectively. The reason being because at 26-28 I've managed to squeeze out 6 more AR out of the Zweihander, rather than having them equal at like 25-25 or 26-26 or something like that. And our intelligence, faith and luck are at base for the Knight class here because we're not really using them. So that's the stat breakdown there. Moving on to our weapons. Now we're maining refined Zweihander plus 10, refined to get the B scaling in strength and dexterity. Now looking at our stat page, we're only really getting 520 AR two-handed here. Granted, it's not the heaviest hitting ultra greatsword in its class, but the advantage is it's quite light. So as you can see here, it only weighs 10. It still hits like an ultra greatsword, so you will stagger or stun lock pretty much everyone. And we do have the versatility here with the extra equip load to be able to equip other weapons to increase our versatility. Now what I like to do is reinforce the Zwei with human pine resin, so that brings our AR up to a more respectable 615. And again, we want to be focusing on trades with this build, so you want to be able to swing and not get staggered yourself. Again, using that refined Poise calculator, I have calculated that using an ultra greatsword we only need a minimum of 45.81 Poise armor to be able to effectively hyper armor through any two-handed R1 in the game, except for great hammers. Now I have tested this myself extensively. I've been able to swing through other ultra great swords, such as the Fume Ultra or the Lothric Knight, and any other weapon in the game, again except for great hammers. Great hammers have more hyper armor than these ultra great swords, so we cannot trade against them. Now moving on to our next weapon, the Sharp Notch Whip plus 10. Why sharp? Because we get a little bit more AR out of it using the Sharp Infusion, and I find that this weapon here is excellent at finishing off opponents. Now we've got this good roll catch attack here, and additionally the weapon art, that one there, a lot of people don't know how to dodge that. It's excellent for finishing off opponents like I've mentioned. You'll find a lot of people will get used to your slow swings with the Zweihander, so it's quite difficult to finish someone off who's playing very passively or reactively. And on top of that, the sharp whip actually goes through shields. So that weapon out there will go through shields. I have tested this myself. I'm sure most of you already know this, but those great shield users that like turtling with that shield, once you whittle them down, the whip will be able to finish them off. Now moving on to our left hand, we have a Blessed Cestus plus 10. Now why am I using a Cestus? Because I think it's essential to have a parry tool here with a heavy weapon. It is quite slow. In the meta level, at least on Xbox One, you will fight a lot of washing poles, a lot of straight swords. Unfortunately, I do see a lot of R1 spam and running R1 spam, so you do want to have something that can parry that, and the Cestus is excellent for this. Now, why have I infused it with Blessed? Reason being, it's for HP regen. Now, don't quote me on this, but I think it's 1 or 2 HP per tick, and that stacks with our Sun Princess ring, which also increases HP by 2 per tick. So essentially you're getting 3 to 4 HP per tick with these two stacked. Now, why is this important? Because like I said, this build focuses on trades. So you want to be able to swing through attacks while taking attacks yourself, and having a higher HP pool plus HP regen really helps with that. Now, some people might say, well, why don't you use Tears of Denial? And the reason I don't use it is because of the stat investment. I really don't think I have the stats here to be able to accommodate Tears of Denial. I mean, we'll either be taking points out of Strength and Dexterity, reducing our AR, taking points out of Vitality, which will reduce our equipment load, so that means less heavier armor, less base Poise, which won't work for us, taking points out of Endurance or Vigor, which again I don't think is viable. I think that they need to be at these levels to utilize this build more effectively. So that's why we're not using Tears, but I can tell you that having the Blessed Cestus and the Sun Princess ring is an excellent alternative. Even when spacing your opponents, or using zoning or zoning them out during a match, even with like 20 seconds, 10 to 20 seconds, you will see a noticeable increase in your HP, which again gives you that that extra HP to be able to trade through attacks. Now finally, our second left-hand weapon is the Arbalest. A lot of you know that the crossbows are excellent, sidearms. They're excellent for roll catching, excellent for punishing passive and reactive players, excellent for punishing mistakes, and also good against casters who do a lot of backpedaling and casting. Obviously, you can hit them with the Arbalest and get out of the way. It's also good for forcing people to roll into you. So timing that that Arbalest shot with a swing is effective as well. Get people to roll into your attacks, which will usually stagger them. So I think the Arbalest here again is essential. And really, with this type of build, we are looking at versatility. I mean, we could have a heavier ultra great sword with greater damage, but that means less options for for being adaptable on the fly. And personally, I do think at the meta level you will encounter, as I said, lots of meta weapons. So it is a good idea to have those options. Now I am invading another world, so that's funny. But our armor here, we have the Havel's armor equipped, obviously to increase our base Poise value above that 45.81 cap. The Gundier's helm is purely fashion for me. Statistically, the Exile mask has better absorption and increases your Poise a little bit more, but because we're not aiming to trade against great hammers but trade against everything else, having that Poise above 45.81 is all you'll need. So really the choice in helmet is up to you. Now moving on to our rings, I'll just show you our rings here after we get summoned in here. We've got the Chloranthy +2, the Ring of Favor +2, the Sun Princess, which stacks with our Blessed Cestus, and the Havel's +2. So all standard here. We need the extra recovery speed in our stamina because we are using a heavy weapon. The Ring of Favor for extra HP, stamina, and equipment load. The Sun Princess ring for stacking with our Blessed Cestus, and the Havel's ring again for that extra equipment load. So yeah, let's just play through this invasion here. So like you saw there, we were able to trade quite easily against that Moonlight Greatsword without getting staggered ourselves. So actually that was a perfect showcase for what this build can do. So again, yep, those were the rings, fairly standard in a Poise build in my opinion, and you're using mostly that Havel's armor to get that Poise armor up to that minimum that you need, depending on what you want to use. So again, consult that calculator, guys, on Reddit. It is quite accurate, quite good. And that pretty much wraps up the build, guys. One last thing I want to add is using the Zweihander. I think it's more effective to be mixing up your one-handed and two-handed attacks in order to prevent your opponent from getting used to your attack speed. So really mixing those one-handed pokes, those two-handed swings, really you get the most out of the Zwei, in my opinion. And yeah, that's about it. So I think this will wrap up the build portion of this video. I will be doing a separate PvP video for this, which will highlight this build in more detail, well, in combat really, so showing you how the different weapons and different options work. I hope you enjoyed it, guys. Like I said, I will be doing a series of these videos focusing on Poise mechanics and builds that take advantage of these new Poise mechanics. So stay tuned for that. If you like what you saw, hit the like button. If you start enjoying my content, please subscribe. Otherwise, thank you for watching, guys.